So imagine buying a $1 million home and getting $200,000 in down payment assistance from the state of California. Yeah, that's what was happening in California back in March of 2023 when the CalHFA Dream for All program that provided up to 20% in assistance to first-time homebuyers went live. I remember there was so much hype and demand around this program that the program ran out of money in 9 days. And now that same program is coming back with another round of funding this spring. Now I'm looking at the website here and there is expected to be an update to the guidelines and rules this time around. So if you're a first-time homebuyer that missed out on that program last year, this might be your opportunity. But we'll go over what the old guidelines were and some of the things that might be staying the same and maybe changing based on what we know so far. And we'll also go over the payback structure for the program because while 20% in down payment assistance does sound good, it's not free money and may not be for everyone. So the first and most important thing to know about the program is that the program is designed for first-time home buyers. And CalHFA's definition of a first-time home buyer is someone that has not had an ownership interest in a principal residence or lived in a home owned by their spouse in the last 3 years. So the principal residence component to this is important because if you've co-signed for someone on their mortgage, let's say your parents, but you haven't lived in that property in the last 3 years, this could make you eligible. Also, let's say you owned a property back in 2016, but you sold it in 2020 because it's been 3 years since the time that you sold it, you could qualify as a first-time home buyer again by their definition. So we'll go into the credit requirements first. The program can only be used with a conventional loan, and the minimum credit score requirements by CalHFA on a conventional loan are 680 or above, or 660 or above if your income is below 80% of the area median income. So for example, if you were to buy a home in Oakland, California, and your income is below $126,560 per year, you could qualify with as low as a 660 credit score. Otherwise, if your income is above that, then you need a 680 credit score above. If you bought in Los Angeles County, for example, you need your income to be below 84,000 and change in order to qualify with a 660 credit score above. Otherwise, you'd need 680. Now, these income limits are separate than the program income limits. These income limits are specific to the minimum credit score that you're going to be required to have when you use this particular program, and this is based on the 80% of the area median income. If you want to know what the maximum income limit is for you, comment your city or county below and I'll answer that, or you can look up the Fannie Mae Home Ready Income Limit Lookup tool and type in your city or county and it'll spit it out right there. Now the maximum debt to income ratios that CalHFA allows are 45%, or if your score is 700 or above, they'll allow you to go up to 50% debt to income ratios. And a couple other credit related items that you should know is that all borrowers on the loan need to meet that 660 or 680 credit score in order to qualify. And then if you're not a U.S. citizen, there are some restrictions around who can qualify based on your current immigration status. So if you have some type of work visa, if you have some type of permanent residency or conditional residency, you might want to check with your loan officer to make sure that you can qualify. Next is income limits. And like many down payment assistance programs, there are income limits that need to be met. And CalHFA's income limits last time around were pretty generous in my opinion. I'm looking at it here and the income limits were assigned by county. So we'll go over a few counties. So if you purchase in Los Angeles, the limit last year was $194,000 a year. If you purchased in San Francisco County, the limit was $300,000 a year. If you bought in Fresno County, the limit was $165,000 a year. And if you bought in Sacramento County, the maximum income that you could earn was $225,000 a year. Now, this is one of the changes that I believe is going to be a big change for their next round of funding. I think the income limits were so generous that it allowed too many people to qualify that didn't necessarily need to use this specific program. They could have either got by with another down payment assistance program that provided less assistance and still be able to qualify, or they didn't need assistance at all. They had their down payment, but because they were able to qualify, they decided to use other people's money instead of use their own money to be able to purchase their first home. Now, one of the numbers that is not at all official and it did not come from CalHFA, I just want to be clear on that, but has been rumored out there is either 120 to 150% of the area median income. And so if someone bought in Los Angeles County, that would mean that they'd have to make either below 126,000 or 157,000 to be eligible, but we'll see what happens there. And the last piece of the qualification part is the assets. A lot of times down payment assistance programs have a minimum contribution or reserve requirements, which really what that means is that the buyer has to come in with their own money and a minimum dollar amount out of their own pocket before any of the assistance is accounted for. So the good news is that CalHFA doesn't have a minimum requirement. So what this means is that you can take that 20% in assistance and that entire amount could be used towards your down payment or your closing costs, and you could technically buy your first home with $0 out of pocket. Now, one of the ways that many buyers used this assistance last time around was they would take the full 20% in assistance and use 15% of it towards a down payment, and that left 5% in assistance that they can then use towards their closing costs. So closing costs can be 2 to 3% of the purchase price, and lenders are often going to charge you a 2% origination fee to do the loan for you. So the 5% is usually enough to cover all of your closing costs, and if there's any over leverage. You can use the remainder to buy down your interest rate and lower your monthly mortgage payment, or you can apply it towards your down payment, but the leftover cash cannot go back to you and you cannot use it to pay off any of your personal debt. Now we go to the payback structure. So this program has a shared appreciation payback structure, which means that whenever you sell or refinance the home, you'll pay back the original assistance provided plus a portion of the appreciation of the home from the time that you purchased the home to the time that you sell the home or refinance. And if you never sell the home, then the assistance is due back whenever you pay off your first mortgage. So if you have a 30-year mortgage and you keep your mortgage for 30 years, it would be paid off then, and that's when you'd have to pay back the assistance as well. Now, the shared appreciation that you're required to pay back is equal to the percentage of assistance that you decide to take. So if you take 20% in assistance, you pay back 20% of the appreciation of your home. Now, in the first round of funding that they had last year, if your income was below 80% of the area median income, your shared appreciation percentage would be 15%. Now, this could change going forward. We don't know, but this is what the guideline was last time. And so let's say you bought a $600,000 home and you get $120,000 in assistance, which is 20% of the purchase price. You don't pay any interest on that assistance and you don't make any additional payments throughout the mortgage term. But let's say you sell the home 5 years later for $700,000. The difference between that $600,000 and $700,000 is going to be $100,000. So that would be your appreciation. So when you sell at that $700,000, you'd pay back the original $120,000 that you got. Now, this isn't money that you necessarily need to save and come up with out of your own pocket, because remember, you likely started with 20% as a down payment, which means your loan amount was lower and you likely already have $120,000 in equity in your home. So it's already there. The money's already there. So you give back the original $120,000, and on top of that, 20% of the appreciation, which is $100,000. So 20% of that is going to be $20,000 that you give back to CalHFA, and then you keep about $80,000. Now with the last round, CalHFA gave you a one-time allowance to refinance without the assistance having to be due, and they'll allow you to refinance that one time after 12 timely payments, and it has to be to reduce your interest rate, meaning you can't pull cash out. It can be a rate and term refi only. The rate has to be lower when you refinance, and you can't use that opportunity to pull cash out. If you do decide to pull cash out, then the assistance will be due back to them. Now, lastly, potential changes. Some of the changes that have been proposed, again, this is not final, this is not insider information, this is just what's been talked about so far, is that number one is, instead of having a first-time homebuyer requirement, they might have a first-generation homebuyer requirement, which has been defined as someone that has not owned a primary residence in the last 3 years, or whose parents haven't owned in the last 10 years. Now, again, this isn't final. This is still being talked about and defined, so this likely is going to change, but this is what's been talked about so far. I think that would be pretty tough, right? To not have owned yourself and then also have to have your parents not own in the last 10 years. And how would they even prove that, or really paper trail all of that? The second thing is that they may limit the amount of fundings per county. So I think the intent here is that they want to equally distribute the money and the funds between all of the state of California, as opposed to just going to some of the larger areas like the Bay Area or LA. And three, and this is likely going to be the biggest change if they do go through with it, is that instead of it being a first come, first serve type of thing, they're going to be likely using a lottery-based system to select qualified individuals for the program. So what this would mean is that you could be fully qualified for the program, but still have to enter a lottery drawing and get selected. So it doesn't promise anything. It's not first come, first serve. It's not prepare and rush to get your application right now, so that when the program goes live, you can, right away reserve your funds. You have to enter a drawing, and then you have to get picked out of that drawing. So it's a little bit of a luck factor in there as well. All right, that's all there is to the Dream for All program with up to 20% in down payment assistance. Again, I'll repeat, these are the guidelines for the program that were in place for the first time around, which was in 2023. I'm not promising that these are going to be the guidelines for the next round going forward. The new round of funding that's expected to come out in March or April is expected to have some changes to the guidelines, and those guidelines are expected to come out at the end of January. So if you want to stay in the loop, my Instagram is below. Feel free to send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email. And hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Peace.